Hi, I'm Peter Franson from ChristianGeekCentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions, here with an uncut review of Frailty. I've got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart, where down in my heart, where down in my heart. I've got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart, where down in my heart to stay. That'll make a lot more sense if you see this movie. All right, so this is a retro review. The year is 2001. Actually, the last retro review I did of Shadow Hearts, the Shadow Hearts games, was also 2001, so I'm just reusing that material now. The year is 2001. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone and Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring are both playing in theaters. Gamers are testing their skills with Grand Theft Auto 3, Max Payne, and Final Fantasy X, and Jeff Johns brought Hawkman back from the dead, or back into continuity or whatever in the pages of JSA. I also got a letter printed in number 26 that year. And also Frailty came out in theaters. The IMDb synopsis says, a man confesses to an FBI agent his family's story of how his religious fanatic father's visions lead to a series of murders to destroy supposed demons. Okay, so this has been in my collection for a long time. I just watched it again recently, showed it to my dad for the first time, and it was great to see it again after so many years. Basically, it takes place between present day, 2001 present day, and like the late 70s, early 80s, I want to say. Matthew McConaughey plays this man who comes into the FBI's office and wants to speak to an investigator and tells him, you know, basically, I have this story that I think will help you with the case that you're working on. And he proceeds to tell him about how when he was a young boy, he and his younger brother were being raised by their father. Their mother had died giving birth to the younger brother. And so you go back and forth between the present day and the 1970s, 80s. And this whole horrific story unfolds about how this father, who is this loving, compassionate man, was suddenly convinced that he received a vision from God, that the end of the world is coming, and that he and his family are now supposed to slay demons to save the world. And but the funny thing is, these demons look exactly like humans and are living normal human lives. And he's supposed to go out and kill these people. And so it's about the boys growing up and dealing with this horrific scenario that they're placed in, and just the drama that comes out of it. I would really describe this as a horror drama. It's not a straight up horror movie. It's not really a slasher movie, because in slasher movies, you know, the bad guy is usually mysterious and he's off somewhere, and it's all about the people that are running from the bad guy. Well, in this one, it's about the killer, you know, the one who's going around doing all this killing, and his family and stuff, and just the boys dealing with this crazy situation they find themselves in. And really, that's where the horror comes from, the horror drama of these young boys being scarred in this way, and having to take part in these gruesome tasks. The horror really comes from what the children endure. It's a violent movie, but you don't often see the violence. You certainly, I can't think of an instance of gore that I saw in this movie. They cut away in those moments to the father and to the boys as they're dealing with this. The father is such a fascinating character. You know, he gets these visions from God in like bowling trophies and the undercarriages of cars that he's working on, because he's a mechanic, you know, and he gets these magical weapons to slay these demons that are like normal objects, everyday objects, you know. So seeing him, he's such a bizarre character to watch, because on the one hand, he's so compassionate and loving to these boys. You see a little snapshot of their lives before he received these visions, and he is like the ideal father, you know. He's just such a loving, good dad, you know. There's nothing weird or strange about him before these visions take place. And then after these visions, he's, oh my gosh, he's still the same loving, compassionate guy, but he's just like, whoa, like a flip gets switched. And it's bizarre because even as he's doing these things he believes he's supposed to do, he is struggling with the fact that he's having to do these gruesome tasks and put his boys through these really stressful situations. It's not like he becomes mean all of a sudden. So he is really convinced that these visions are the truth, and you see him struggling with that. It's wow, just fascinating stuff. And it yields a lot of really compelling drama. So let's talk about the cast performances. The father is played by Bill Game Over Man Paxton, who you would recognize maybe from the movie Aliens and like a bunch of other stuff you've seen him in from especially from the 80s and maybe early 90s. And he directs this movie, and he is the father in this movie. And man, he just does a wonderful job as this dad. He's warm, like I said, loving, compassionate toward people. He just is yeah, just really interesting and yeah, wonderful performance. There's not much more I can say without just kind of repeating myself. Matthew McConaughey plays the older son grown up who is talking to this FBI agent and confessing this gruesome family history that he has. And he is creepy a little bit, but he's doesn't come across as like being evil. He's just kind of like this. You're always trying to kind of read him and figure out what's going on, and even the FBI agent is like, there's something you haven't told me, there's something kind of going on inside of him that you don't know. He's really hard to read, and for that reason, very interesting to watch. I don't think I've seen Matthew McConaughey play another character like this. It's not like this bizarre kind of character. It's very understated, as he often is. But he's very interesting to watch. The young boys in the flashbacks, and most of the movie takes place in the quote unquote flashback period. It's mostly that kind of this period, late 70s, early 80s story. The young boys are solid for child actors, but they're not Dakota Fannings, who just have this incredible emotional access that just you totally buy every moment that they give you as actors. So they're not Dakota Fannings by any stretch, but they couldn't always portray the depth of emotion that was called for by these extreme circumstances, but it doesn't significantly hurt the experience. They're still solid child actors. Dakota Fanning was the exception, and actors, those rare actors like Dakota Fanning are the exception. I think most of us are used to child actors and kind of the limits that they normally have, and like I said, these aren't bad child actors. There are bad child actors. It's like, oh man, that was totally miscast, But so these aren't bad child actors. They just aren't Dakota Fannings. Stunts and visuals. There's actually very few stunts and effects in this movie. The ones that do exist are handled just fine. The horror, like I said, is really captured by cutting to one of the boys' faces or to the father's face during these gruesome acts of killing these demons. They don't really show, like the blood splatters, and it's not really about that. And I think that the movie is much more effective in inducing that feeling of dread and in tension by cutting to the faces of these people who are having to deal with these horrific circumstances, and then pair that with your imagination of what they are seeing. It really works much better than so many horror movies do. In terms of like relevance, is there anything of philosophical, moral, or spiritual significance that this movie might stimulate thought about or conversation about? Abso-frickin-lutely. You can almost recall some story like this from the news of like, crazy man in Bible Belt sees visions in bowling trophies and goes on killing spree. I can't think of anything like that, but you can, because of the kinds of headlines that the news likes to cover, about, those Christians off in corners somewhere that are crazy, instead of, publicizing, hey, this Christian organization, provided relief to hundreds of people suffering in such and such place or whatever. They don't cover that as much. They like to cover more of the like crazy Christians in Bible Belt, slay more people. So, but because we've had exposure to those kinds of, sensational stories, it's it makes this story close enough to reality to make it very uncomfortable to watch. Maybe especially for someone like me, who I just hate seeing Christianity represented in that way in the media, whether that's news media or in fiction and stuff like that. And so to see that once again in a movie like this is frustrating, is uncomfortable, and Christianity is not specifically named as kind of like the faith that this father and his family have, but it's obviously intended. There's just enough trappings and references, like the boys singing, "I've got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart." That's from old Christian Sunday school tradition, it's another movie about some psycho Christian, which is which I would ordinarily either hate or just be bored with for its lack of creativity and theme. But this one's different, and I can't say why without spoiling anything, without spoiling the whole movie, actually. This movie stays in my collection because it's a good, solid movie, but because also it challenges the viewer to set aside emotion and accept truth when it is revealed to them, despite how uncomfortable that truth may make them feel. It's what I would call maybe a safe exercise in accepting truth despite the discomfort it brings. So personally, I think this is a great movie for non-believers definitely come to mind first, but I think it's a good movie and a good exercise for anybody. It just is a reminder to us that we need to set aside how we feel about something and accept truth when the evidence is irrefutable and it's right there in front of us, And so I think this movie is a little bit of an exercise in that, but in a safe way without obviously having to change what you really believe about the real world. It just asks you to do that for the sake of entering into the experience of the story. So now, in summary, if I were a time traveler and talking to myself, because I wouldn't dare, presume to say that a movie or experience is objectively awesome. I hope that's understood when I rant and rave and stuff about how good or bad things are, that it's my opinion. You guys get that, right? Okay. So, but if I were a time traveler and I go back in time, talk to myself, I'd say, Pater, okay, listen, I know you don't like slasher movies normally. You're more into supernatural and monster type movies, and I know that you don't want to watch another Christians are the bad guys once again type story, but watch this movie. Watch it. And then come talk to me about it afterwards, after the whole thing's done, because there's so many things to talk about after the credits roll that we can't talk about before you see this movie. So go see this movie and then talk to me about it, because I want to talk to you about it. So anyway, speaking of which, stick around for my spoiler thoughts after I wave my my Christian Geek Central sign at you in a minute or two. Okay, so it's rated R for violence and some language. Really, it's the subject matter that gives this movie its rating, not the gore, not really even the violence, because you don't really see the violence hardly at all. But the subject matter calls for this R rating. Final score, quality, I give it a 9.0 out of 10. It's not this mind-blowing experience in terms of how the story was told, or the ability of the actors wasn't like this mind-blowing, awesome, revolutionary performance, but it's the sum of its parts is really something special, I think. And then relevance, I give it a 9.0 out of 10. Again, I can't explain why until, based on what I've said earlier, just what I said earlier, that's the reason. It really, all the subject matter and then the way it challenges the audience, I'll say, make this movie a 9 in my opinion for relevance. Please do like, share, and subscribe. I want more voices, by the way, than mine on this channel. So email me if you'd like to submit content for this channel. And if you just want to take in content, that's fine. You can help me out again by liking if you like this, or share if you want to share it, or subscribing if you want more videos like this. That'll really help me out. And then visit. Geez, I even put, you can't see it, but in my notes I had this big sign, dummy, in my notes, and I forgot to show you my sign of my picture of Bill Paxton. Here it is, and Matthew McConaughey. Where's my other sign that I said I was going to flash at you? Okay, here we go. Boom! Go to ChristianGeekCentral.com, where you can hang out with some other Christian geeky folks, and I hope you join us there soon as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. All right, flashing sign, like I said I would. Okay, you need to go right now if you don't want this whole thing spoiled for you, because I'm about to enter into spoilers now. Go see the movie. I'm serious. Go see it, because this will be ruined for you. Just trust me. Well, you don't have to trust me, but if you like my reviews and you think that my opinion generally represents yours, pause this now. Come back later. All right, here we go. Spoilers abound at this point on. So what's the big reveal? It's all real. It's all real. They really are slaying demons. These people really are demons. Oh my gosh. That was such a huge thing at the end, you know, when he, I'm assuming you've seen it now. When he touches that FBI agent, you know, and the agent freaks out, you know, and then you see flashbacks of his abilities being used on all these other victims, and you know, during the movie when the dad is touching the demons who are panicking and crying and stuff, you know, they're scared to death, and you think that they're behaving mostly like victims would behave, but when he grabs them, you'll notice, I even noticed, I think on the first viewing, and my dad noticed this too when he saw it for the first time, that they react in a little bit extra of a freaky way when he touches them, because when he touches them, that's when he, you know, reveals their sins and stuff like that, or he sees them in his mind when he touches them. You know, they react in a way that, like, when you're watching it the first time, you could say, whoa, are they reacting because they're just really super freaked out now because the guy that kidnapped them and is planning to kill them is now grabbing them? Is that what's making them kind of go into a more intense mode? Or are they like really experiencing the supernatural power of this guy as he totally sees all of their sin and evil now? And at the end of the movie, you know, you go back and you realize, yes, that is what was going on. And you know, all of it, when sometimes I couldn't remember if I was remembering it wrong, if maybe it was still open-ended, but no, it's clear by the end of this movie, because everybody forgot who Matthew McConaughey was. You know, there's all those, like the tape gets supernaturally screwed with so that you can't see his face in the security cameras. And the one dude who saw him face to face sees him again later and he still can't remember who he is, you know. So it is, at the end of this movie, it is crystal clear. Yes, there is no two ways to interpret this movie. You cannot interpret this movie as, you know, them really being just psychos, and maybe it's kind of still up in the air. And I think that's how this movie would be made today. But in 2001, they were brave enough to totally go this other route. And I think it's a brave choice also because this boy, Fenton, that you are feeling compassion for this whole movie. He seems to be the one person that's sane in the whole movie, and you feel horrible for what he's having to endure, and he's constantly pleading with his dad, I think you're sick in the head, I think something's wrong. He's trying to tell his brother, no, Dad's messed up, there's something wrong, we got to run away, you know. And then he gets put in the cellar, and like deprived of like food and everything except for water for days and days, and the longest time, you know. You're just like, oh my gosh, this is horrible what's being done to this child. And then at the end of the movie, you realize retrospectively, he was a demon. He was a demon the whole time. And if you watch the movie again, he behaves like a demon would, I think, in a very deceptive way. He fooled you and me. Well, maybe not you. Maybe you're smarter than I am. But he totally fooled me, and probably fooled most people in the audience, because you're feeling compassion for him. And yeah, just crazy. And you know, and you notice, like, even when they were walking, the two boys were walking down the street, and the younger boy, who's like totally sold out and believes everything his dad tells him, he's singing, I've got the joy down in him. And the older brother's like, I don't want to sing that stupid song. And he only participates half-heartedly. Where, you know. And which, when you're watching the movie, you're just like, oh, he's just an older brother, he's too cool for Sunday school songs. But now you look back and you say, well, he was a demon. Of course he doesn't want, you know, any of that kind of, you know, song that is celebrating what Jesus has done, which is what that song is about. Whether or not the filmmakers are aware of that or not, they probably just recognize, okay, this is a song about spiritual joy or something like that, and a demon wouldn't be interested in that. But I mean, like, it makes sense even from a Christian point of view to look at that and say, yeah, a demon would not want to participate in singing that kind of song, celebrating the joy that a believer has because of what Jesus has done for them. Yeah, he wouldn't want any part of that, you know. And a demon would be trying to convince someone that that what they believe about God is crap. It's delusional. That's totally what a demon would do, and he would be the whole movie pleading with them, and you know, playing on that person's love for them, his father's love for what he thought was a boy, you know. And now the one thing that I'm not clear about, well, first let me, I'll say this first. Well, the one thing I'm not clear about is why Fenton, or excuse me, why Adam, who we realize at the end of the movie, that's who Matthew McConaughey really is. He goes into the FBI agent's office saying, "I'm Fenton Meeks," but he reveals at the end, "No, I'm actually not. I'm Adam. I'm the younger brother." But he comments toward the end of the movie that he didn't kill his brother. He couldn't kill his brother before his name appeared on his list that God gives him every so often. Because if he would have killed him before, then it would have been murder. And I'm not clear on why that was the case. Would that just mean that he was acting before God told him to, and in that sense, it's murder to destroy a life or kill something without God's sanction or something? Is that what he means? Or does he mean that, like, his brother wasn't a demon until... No, he couldn't mean that, because the angel told the dad that Fenton was a demon even when he was a kid. So anyway, I just thought that was kind of an interesting kind of thing that I wasn't really clear on, but yeah, I guess what I would conclude, I was kind of wondering at the time, is like, are they demons their whole lives, these people? Are they born demons? You know, it's just like this empty vessel that a demon is born and grows up in. And based on Fenton, at least, I would have to conclude, yes, that like these things are born demons. They are not people from the very beginning. And they live this perfectly deceptive life, which is, you know... horrifying and completely unbiblical, but it's an interesting just little step of suspending disbelief to enter into the movie, and and I think it does certainly say something about the nature of evil, the nature of demons, that, you know, we don't give them enough credit for their ability to deceive. I remember talking to somebody once, you know, who just had some bad spiritual beliefs, and I just kind of asked them about, you know, like, I was kind of asking them about their beliefs a little bit, and they said to me at one point, you know, I would know if it was evil, you know, I would feel it if it was evil, you know, as if evil is something that we can just detect by feeling it. If something feels evil, then that's how we know it's evil, because it feels evil. But you know what? A lot of times, evil feels frickin' good. You know, that's certainly my experience, that evil can really feel in the short term frickin' great. And so we don't give enough credit to the deceptiveness of evil and those who serve evil, you know, demons. Anyway, for so many reasons, this movie is challenging and fascinating and worth talking about after it's done. So I hope that you find somebody that you think would be a good fit to show this movie to, and to talk about the movie with them afterward, because I think it's really cool and really useful as well. All right, that's it. Bye.